Lecture number 17 is part second of this lecture, metabolism of proteins or nitrogen in ruminant animals. In the previous lecture, we have discussed about nitrogen or protein utilization in ruminant animals. Ruminant animals' diet contain both true protein and NPN compound. Both are degraded in the rumen into ammonia as a final product. The true protein is first fermented or degraded into amino acid, and then there is a production of ammonia and keto acid. Both are utilized by the bacterial species for the synthesis of microbial protein when energy is available in the rumen environment. Then this microbial protein is passed on to the small intestine. The protein which is not degraded by the ruminal microorganisms that also escape ruminal fermentation and enter into the small intestine for further degradation. So the natural feed stuffs, they contain about 40% of their protein as a escape protein or bypass protein or rumen undegradable protein. The excess ammonia, if it is not utilized by the bacteria, so that excess or overflow then pass on to the blood or portal blood after absorption through the ruminal wall. In the liver, it is converted into urea, and then the excess is excreted through the urine. And in case if dietary nitrogen is not sufficient to meet the animal requirement, then to fulfill the nitrogen deficiency, particularly for microbial species, that urea recycled through saliva and enter into the rumen. So this is the general overview of nitrogen or protein utilization. Here you can see a very detailed picture of this protein and nitrogen metabolism. And almost this is similar to what we have discussed in the previous, but here there is a little detail. This is the esophagus, where dietary protein as well as the nitrogen from NPN compound or the NPN compounds, through mouth, they come into the esophagus, and then they are in the rumen environment. So in the rumen, the urea that is recycled urea through this saliva that also incorporated into the nitrogen or protein entering into the rumen. Another source of urea recycling, that urea then through bloodstream that absorb into the ruminal wall. So these are the two main sources of urea that are available from the body, or you can say that this is the recycled urea or recycling of the urea within the body of the animal. So within the rumen, what happened? The NPN or protein, all they are degraded into amino acids, and there is a production of ammonia. So this ammonia is then converted into the bacterial protein, and these amino acids, they are all incorporated into the bacterial protein. So this bacterial protein in the abomasum is then broken down into amino acid, because in the abomasum there is HCl and trypsin, pepsin. In the abomasum, it works like a true stomach. There is a production of HCl and pepsin, so that's why there is a protein degradation and production of amino acids. Those amino acids, they are carried to the small intestine for further degradation. The excess of the ammonia, as we have already discussed, through the ruminal wall, they absorb into the bloodstream, and then through hepatic portal vein, they are carried to the liver, where this ammonia is converted into urea, and then urea is then passed on either to the bloodstream towards the salivary gland, or reabsorbed into the ruminal wall, or it carried to the kidney if it is in excess amount, and then excreted through the urine. In the small intestine, there are the amino acids and those amino acids are absorbed into the blood through hepatic portal, and then they carry to the liver for the resynthesis of protein, or carrying these amino acids to the tissues where they are required. Amino acids absorbed through the intestinal wall also carry to the mammary gland for the synthesis of milk protein, and the protein which is not digested that then pass to the large intestine and then excreted in the fecal material in the form of undigested protein. Some of the proteins, they are not digestible in the tract. The reason being they are either over-treated or excessively heat-treated protein. So those proteins are the damaged protein that cannot be digested by the intestinal enzymes. When we talk about the body tissue protein metabolism, so body tissue, they get catabolized and there is a protein turnover in the tissues. So as a result of that protein catabolism, there is a production of amino acids. So those amino acids are then carried to the liver, and again, they have the same fate as the other amino acids, or they also result in the production of urea. We will discuss all these mechanisms in the next coming slides. You will have a better understanding of the subject. So in ruminant animals, like other species, there is no protease in the saliva, so no protein digestion. And similarly, in the rumen, there is no secretion from the animal side. Rather, there are the microorganisms which are responsible for protein digestion in the rumen and to some extent in the reticulum. So these are the microbial enzymes which are responsible for protein digestion, or you can say the protein fermentation. So bacteria and protozoa both are present and they are responsible for this fermentation. Sources of rumen nitrogen. What are the major sources of rumen nitrogen? The first one is the feed. The nitrogen present in the feed, either it is a nitrogen in the form of amino acid, so that's a protein nitrogen. Such type of protein is present in different type of feedstuffs or protein supplements like soybean meal, cottonseed meal, grain, forages, silages, blood meal, meat meal. All these stuff or protein supplements, they contain nitrogen in the form of a true protein. Then NPN nitrogen or non-protein nitrogen, mainly the major source of NPN compound which we use in ruminant animal diet is urea. So 5% of nitrogen in grain to 50% of the nitrogen in silage and immature forages can be of NPN. So it means even if we are feeding vegetable or protein, natural protein supplement to the animal, all that stuff contain some amount of nitrogen in the form of NPN compound. So whenever we are going to feed urea or other NPN compound like biuret or ammonium sulfate or ammonium salt, so we should consider the amount of nitrogen, NPN nitrogen particularly, that is coming from the diet, rather than considering only from the NPN compound. The reason being, we may go for some excess amount of NPN compound feeding to the animal. Second is the endogenous nitrogen, that's a recycled nitrogen or recycled ammonia or recycled urea, that is either through salivary glands or through saliva and also through the ruminal wall. So these are the two major sources of rumen nitrogen. And when we talk about ruminal protein degradation, so there is enzymatic degradation through fermentation process, and those proteolytic enzymes, they are produced by the microorganisms. So microorganism proteases and peptidases, they cause cleavage of the peptide bonds, and that result in the release of amino acids. So those amino acids are deaminated by the microorganisms, and that result in the production of ammonia and carbon skeleton. Microorganisms utilize that ammonia carbon skeleton, and energy to synthesize their own amino acids. So that is the synthesis of microbial protein through this available ammonia, carbon skeleton, and energy. So that energy is primarily coming from carbohydrate like starch, sugar, and cellulose. During carbohydrate fermentation, we have already discussed a different rate of degradation of different type of carbohydrate sources. Formation of ammonia is rapid because through this deamination, there is a rapid production of ammonia, and that's why very few free amino acids are available or can be detected in the rumen contents. Ruminal microbes, they are the good source of protein. If we compare this bacteria and protozoa, so both contain a good amount of protein. However, the bacteria contain 50% crude protein, and that is between 20 to 60% of their dry matter as a crude protein. That's generally ruminal microbes. So out of that, bacteria protein contents are about 50%, whereas the protozoal protein contents are 40%, and they're highly variable, 20 to 60%. Whereas in case of bacteria, there is only plus minus 5%. Microbial nitrogen comprises of 40% of non-ammonia nitrogen. It means this is the nitrogen which is not in the form of NPN, rather that is from amino acids. When there is a high protein diet, and when we are feeding a low protein diet, then 60% of the nitrogen, microbial nitrogen, is in the form of non-ammonia nitrogen. Half of the microbial protein in the human can be protozoal. So both bacteria and protozoa, they are synthesizing the protein. And when we consider the amount of protein from these two sources, almost 50% is coming from the protozoa. But when we look at the protein that is leaving the human environment, that is only 10% is of protozoal origin. So it means the rest of the protozoal protein is either being degraded in the human as protozoa, they burst due to their uncontrolled starch metabolism. Efficiency of microbial crude protein synthesis depends on nutrient and energy available. This is very much clear, and we have discussed earlier. If energy would not be available when ammonia is there, then ammonia cannot be utilized, and there will be a little or no synthesis of microbial protein. So that's why the efficiency of this microbial crude protein synthesis depends upon the availability of the nutrient and energy available in the ruminal environment. Then talk about the quality of this microbial protein. So quality usually determined by either the digestibility of the protein or its efficiency of absorption. So for that, we use a term that is known as biological value of a protein. Biological value is defined as the proportion of absorbed nitrogen which is retained. Okay? It is the proportion of absorbed nitrogen which is retained. Whereas the other term is nitrogen, other term is net protein utilization. So this is the proportion on intake which is retained. So here we consider the intake value, whereas in case of biological value, we consider only the absorbed which is retained. So the biological value of microbial crude protein is 66 to 87%, and whereas the bacterial protein is of we have a variable biological value, and its crude digestibility is between 74 to 79%, and net protein utilization is 63%. But when we compare it with the protozoal protein is of high biological value, more digestibility, and more net protein utilization. But again, due to only 10% of this protozoal protein that left the human environment, so we usually consider that majority of the protein available at abomasum and at small intestinal level is of bacterial origin, and its digestibility is between 74 to 79%. Here are the sources of ammonia entry, or in other words, we say this is the ammonia pool in the rumen. That is in the form of peptides and amino acids. They are usually coming from the true protein. Then miscellaneous soluble nitrogen material like NPN substances, urea, uric acid, nitrate. So that can be converted quickly to ammonia. The third source of this ammonia pool is the urea, hydrolysis of urea recycled to the rumen and from degradation of the microbial. One, urea that is recycled through the rumen, and the second, the degradation of the microbial crude protein. Third is the protozoa delivered ammonia. Protozoa delivered or derived ammonia. Okay, this is this excrete ammonia as an end product of their metabolism. Last one is the gaseous nitrogen that enter the rumen with the feed and fixed by the microorganisms. Sources of ammonia exit. Ammonia nitrogen incorporated into the microbial cell. The ammonia which is liberated or produced in the rumen and then taken up by the microorganisms for the synthesis of microbial protein. So this is ammonia nitrogen incorporated into microbial cell. The second is ammonia outflow that depend upon total ammonia concentration in the rumen fluid and rate of fluid outflow. The ammonia is there in the ruminal environment, but if it is produced in excess amount that cannot be utilized by the microorganisms, so that outflowed through the ruminal wall after absorption into the bloodstream. Ammonia absorption through the ruminal wall. So the first one is as such the outflow, and then its absorption through the ruminal wall. Then NPN utilization. NPN utilization is the urea rapidly degraded into ammonia. Or these NPN compounds like urea, biuret, uric acid, they are rapidly degraded into ammonia. And the majority of the sources of NPN compound used in ruminant animal diet is of urea. So microorganisms, they don't care from where this ammonia is coming from. So they only need nitrogen or in the form of ammonia. However, from animal production point of view and from optimal fermentation, the level of ruminal ammonia that is necessary to support optimal fermentation is approximately 20 milligram per 100 ml of ruminal fluid. We should at least maintain this level so that the fermentation will be optimum, and that also help the microbial population to continue the fermentation process. And for each kg of organic matter fermented, approximately 30 gram nitrogen is taken up by the rumen bacteria as protein and nucleic acid. So from this statement, we can calculate the amount of ammonia production, or we can also calculate, we are able to calculate how much is the utilization of the nitrogen. If there is fermentation of 1 kg of organic matter, then the ruminal bacteria, they are capable of utilizing 30 gram of nitrogen. So you can adjust your diet accordingly. So then there are certain limitations of microbial protein synthesis. Out of those limitations, the two most likely limitation is energy and ammonia available. So these two things, energy and ammonia, they should be available at the same time. So if they're synchronized, then we can get maximum benefit of ruminal fermentation, or we can have a maximum efficiency of ruminal protein synthesis. So for the diets containing urea, that may also need an energy source. We have discussed during the carbohydrate chapter. So highly fermentable energy source is required when we are feeding highly degradable nitrogenous source like urea. So that result in a rapid production of ammonia. So ultimately, there should be a rapid production of energy in the rumen. So that synchronization will result in maximum efficiency of protein synthesis in the ruminal environment. So not only this, sulfur containing amino acids are also required, because for the synthesis of methionine cysteine, sulfur is required. If sulfur is not present, that will limit the synthesis of those amino acids, and ultimately protein will not be synthesized at a higher pace. And branch chain carbon skeleton, because microorganisms cannot make branch chain carbon skeleton. So that should be incorporated, or some dietary sources should be there to fulfill this deficiency. So usually these branch chain carbon skeleton, they don't create a very big problem. The reason being they are naturally present in the diet, but at least they may create some issue if we are giving animal an NPN based diet, or the diet containing high amount of NPN without considering the, or without adding the natural stuff in the diet. In that case, chances are there. So this is what we have discussed, the dietary food or feed which we are giving to the ruminant animal, that is composed of protein and non-protein nitrogenous compound. Protein means the true protein. So out of this protein, some protein is undegradable, which we say it's a bypass protein. So it escapes the ruminal fermentation and enter into the abomasum and small intestine. The protein which is degradable, that is a part of this protein, around 60% of the natural feedstuff protein is in the form of degradable protein. So it is converted into peptide amino acid. Those amino acids and deaminated, there is the production of ammonia. So both amino acid and ammonia, they are taken up by the microorganisms, and they convert that stuff into microbial protein. So this microbial protein then pass on to the abomasum and small intestine. NPN compounds, they are converted into ammonia. So then ammonia is utilized by the microorganism for the synthesis of microbial protein, or excess of the ammonia then passing or outflow the ruminal environment if it is present in excess amount. Similarly, the excess amount is also absorbed through the ruminal wall, then enter into the liver, and then from liver it come back to the salivary glands, and then added into the ruminal environment through saliva, or some of that ammonia is then passed to the kidney for excretion. But also there is also recycling through the ruminal wall when this blood passes through the rumen. So this is what we have discussed about digestion and metabolism of nitrogenous compounds. So when we talk about overflow ammonia, if ammonia is present in excess amount and there is a shortage of energy relative to available ammonia, this is the most important factor when we are feeding this NPN compound. So in that case, ammonia then pass on to the liver, where it is converted into urea. So this urea is recycled or excreted depending upon the animal need. Recycling is through saliva and through the ruminal wall. Then we talk about the protein leaving the rumen. Earlier we discussed about ammonia leaving the rumen. Now we are discussing about the protein leaving the rumen. That's a microbial protein, and the second one is the protein which is bypass protein, or the protein that escape ruminal fermentation. So they enter into the abomasum and small intestine for further degradation. So they are digested by proteolytic enzymes similar to digestion in non-ruminants. In the abomasum, there is a pepsin and ICL, and in case of small intestine, there are the proteolytic enzyme from the pancreas as well as from the intestinal juice. Escape or bypass protein, we have discussed in very much detail that the protein which escapes ruminal fermentation. The protein which is not degraded by the ruminal microorganism is known as bypass protein or escape protein. This is also known as ruminal undegradable protein. So technically we cannot say it's a bypass protein, because that protein is passing through the rumen, but it bypasses ruminal fermentation. Ruminal microorganisms are unable, or they cannot degrade this protein. So such protein is known as ruminal undegradable protein. That's a wise word to use. Similarly, in case of young calves, there is a reticular groove, and that bypasses the stuff through the rumen and reticulum and then enter into the abomasum. In that case, we can say it's a bypass protein or bypass stuff, because due to the presence of this reticular groove, the material bypasses the first three compartment of the ruminant stomach. So amino acid as a source of energy. We have discussed that carbohydrate and fat are the major sources of energy. Carbohydrates and fat, they are cheaper as compared to amino acids. So we should be careful while considering amino acid as a source of energy. The reason being amino acids are the costly items. But there are certain situations when these amino acids they are utilized for the production of energy. Here are some of the examples. When there is an excess intake of amino acids, if we are taking excess protein, then definitely body cannot handle those excess amino acids, so they get catabolized. So due to the catabolism of those amino acids, there is a production of energy. So this situation usually do not exist in case of animals because we usually try to keep trying to keep their diet low in energy. The reason being the excess amino acid will be of no use, or they make the diet costly. So in ruminant animals, we always try to fulfill the protein requirements rather than giving them excess amount of protein or excess amino acids. In human being, yes, we can say, yeah, we sometimes go for overeating, but in Pakistan nowadays we are also now facing some issues of excess protein feeding without considering the animal requirement. The second situation is the negative energy balance, the situation when animal energy balance is low, animal do not have sufficient amount of carbohydrate and energy to fulfill the energy requirement, then in that case, the protein they get catabolized to fulfill the energy requirement of an individual. So in that case, definitely there is a catabolism of protein, and that result in the production of energy. This is very much important in case of dogs and cat, which have been shown to be healthy on a carbohydrate-free diet. The reason being, pet animals are usually eating a diet, or we kept those animals on a diet which are carbohydrate-free diet. So in that case, they are eating protein, and those proteins may serve for the energy production. So that degradation is mainly in the liver or also in the kidney. But in case of muscle tissues, they are relatively inactive in this case. So in animal tissue, amino acid degradation takes place mainly in the liver, although the kidney also shows considerable activity, whereas the muscle tissue is relatively inactive. Now we will discuss steps of this degradation. The first step is the removal of the amino group. So this can be done by two different ways. The one is known as oxidative deamination, and the other one is transamination. So here is an example of this transamination. In transamination activity, what happened here? You can see the aspartic acid or aspartate. This is an amino acid, and then the second one is alpha-ketoglutarate that is present in a TCA cycle. So the ammonia or this NH3 group is transferred to this alpha-ketoglutarate. So that results in the production of glutamate. And whereas there is also production of oxaloacetate when ammonia gets transferred from this aspartate, that is converted into oxaloacetate, whereas the alpha-ketoglutarate is converted into glutamate. The enzyme required for this process is known as aspartate aminotransferase. So that causes the transfer of amino acid. So when amino acids are available in excess of the animal requirement, or when the animal is forced to break down the body tissue to maintain essential body process, then this catabolism occurs. So the first step under this, we have discussed this transamination. Briefly, in transamination, the amino group is transferred to the carbon atom of a keto acid, usually ketoglutarate. So that results in the production of another keto acid and glutamate. Here the other keto acid is oxaloacetate, and these reactions are catalyzed by the enzyme which are known as aminotransferases. Here amino acid is aspartate, then this is known as aspartate aminotransferase. So Then comes a other step that is known as oxidative deamination. Here, this is the second step, not the first step, that is oxidative deamination. Here you can see the glutamate. Just look at the previous slide. So this is the glutamate. So during the oxidative deamination, what happens? This ammonia of this glutamate is converted into NH4. NH3 is converted into NH4, and there is a release of alpha ketoglutarate. So it means we get the same stuff or keto acid back with the production of ammonia. Here, the requirement is a glutamate dehydrogenase. The glutamate so formed as a result of transamination, it becomes available in the digestive tract, and from protein breakdown in the tissue may undergo oxidative deamination in the presence of glutamate dehydrogenase. The ketoglutarate may then be used in further transamination, and the reduced coenzyme is NAD is oxidized by oxidative phosphorylation. Glutamate is the only amino acid in mammalian tissue that undergo oxidative deamination at an appreciable rate. So this is what is going on during this oxidative deamination process. So next step is about the urea production. So the production of urea, because there is a production of NH4, and then that NH4, if it is in excess, not be utilized by the body, so it should be excreted from the body. So there is a reverse of oxidative deamination. This ammonia is then again converted into glutamate. So this is known as reverse of oxidative deamination. So one of the consequences of amino acid catabolism is the production of ammonia, which is highly toxic. So some of this ammonia is utilized in the amination process during amino acid synthesis in the body. So in this case, ammonia reacts with alpha ketoglutarate to give glutamate, which is then used for the protein synthesis. The reaction is the reverse of oxidative deamination, except that NADP, this NADP that takes the place of NAD. However, most of the ammonia produced is excreted from the body in the form of urea in the mammals and in the form of uric acid in case of birds. So this is how this urea is produced. So this deamination of amino acid occurs in all the organs of the body, but primarily in the liver. In most other tissues, the ammonia is converted to glutamate or alanine in case of muscle before being transported to the liver and regenerated. In mammal, ammonia is then converted into urea. So this is a two-stage process that requires a supply of energy in the form of ATPs. The first stage is the production of carbamyl phosphate from carbon dioxide and ammonia in the presence of carbamyl phosphate synthetase. This is the complete urea cycle. The carbamyl phosphate then enter or react with the ornithine to start a cycle reaction resulting in the production of urea. So ornithine and carbamyl phosphate that makes acetylene, and that continue this cycle result in the production of urea. So in ruminant animal, ammonia is absorbed directly from the rumen as we have discussed earlier, and it undergoes series of reaction, and most of the urea is excreted, but a certain amount that is recycled through this ruminal wall and through the saliva. So this is how this urea is produced, and then it is excreted into the through the urine. So the final is about the protein synthesis. We are not going into detail about how proteins are synthesized. They are usually synthesized through this amination and transamination processes. So proteins are synthesized from amino acid, which become available either from the end product of digestion or as the result of synthetic processes, synthetic synthesis processes within the body. There is a direct amination, that may take place in case of alpha ketoglutarate that result in the production of glutamate. We have already discussed this. Glutamate then undergo further amination to give glutamine, and that result in the production of different type of amino acids and keto acids that we have discussed previously. There are the four phases of this protein synthesis. One is the activation of individual amino acids, then initiation of peptide chain formation, chain elongation, and the final is the chain termination. So these are the four phases of protein synthesis, and we have just remember these four phases. We are not going into detail about these because our objective is to discuss about this protein digestion, absorption, and metabolism. So this is all about digestion, absorption, and metabolism of protein in monogastric as well as ruminant animals.